What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be starting a new series on the channel. It's called Why I Love. In this series we're going to be talking about things that I love, going a little bit in depth. So this is going to be shows, series, like manga series, stuff like that. Certain arcs, maybe a moment, games, characters, whatever, as long as I love them and I feel like I can go a little bit in depth on the discussion and things like that. We're going to talk about it. So, first episode of Why I Love, we're going to be talking about Kirishima and the Red Riot Unbreakable moment. Alright, so before we jump in, a little bit of guidelines. It's going to be a mixture of it's not going to be super detailed. It's not going to be like an extensive look on the characters' history. I'm pretty much going to bounce from point to point, talking about things that I feel are important enough to it. So I'm not going to talk I'm not going to do like an episode by episode breakdown of Kirishima leading up to the Red Riot Unbreakable moment. Let's say if he was in an arc and he had some very development that I enjoyed that built up to this moment, I'm going in depth on that. But other than that, I'm going to try to keep it short, sweet, to the point, and only go in depth when needed. Let's get started on why I fell in love with Kirishima. Well, I liked him from the beginning, and I enjoyed how he was willing to go toe-to-toe with the League of Villains and his insecurities of his quirk not being flashy like Shoto or Bakugo. Like how when he first met Tetsu, he feels worse and he feels down on himself because Tetsu's quirk is, steel. He turns steel. It's very similar to Kirishima's hardening quirk, but, instead of hardening his body, he just turns to steel. And that feeling of, being insecure and just almost jealousy continued on in the sports festival arc when he's, paired up and competing against Tetsu and how Present Mike pretty much gives off a same introduction to both of them, and Kirishima is just annoyed by that because he doesn't feel as unique. He just feels like, oh, there's someone else just like me, so why am I special? And they draw obviously in their fight, and then whenever they win in the arm wrestling competition, it begins the start of a manly friendship. I was going to say beautiful, but Kirishima wouldn't like that. He would be like, this is a manly relationship. Alright, so after the sports festival, we have pretty much the forest training arc, or just the training arc in general when they're at the sleepaway camp. Bakugo is kidnapped by the League, Class 1A. They meet up in Deku's room, and Kirishima, who is tired of feeling like he cannot do anything, teams up with Momo, Deku, Shoto, and Ida to track down Bakugo, which Ida is annoyed at this because he's just like, you're basically, if you do this, you're acting like I did against Stain, and we all know what happened with that. In which they say, hey, we're not going to fight, we're just going to go and try and rescue Bakugo. So when they finally get to the warehouse where All For One is, the students are paralyzed from fear and from seeing All For One, and they see Bakugo trying to fight / get away from the League of Villains, and Kirishima is shown to be the anchor and the plan to rescue Bakugo because they have Deku using full cowling, Tenya using his Reciprio burst, and Shoto using his an ice as a ramp, and then they just have Kirishima. It's like, hey, you're gonna need the one to grab him because Bakugo is going to pretty much tell Ida and Deku to piss off. And that's, I believe, is kind of in my eyes, I believe that's kind of the start of his confidence getting built up some more, leading towards the Red Riot moment. Alright, so after the sports festival, we have pretty much the forest training arc, or just the training arc in general when they're at the sleepaway camp. Bakugo is kidnapped by the League, Class 1A. They meet up in Deku's room, and Kirishima, who is tired of feeling like he cannot do anything, teams up with Momo, Deku, Shoto, and Ida to track down Bakugo, which Ida is annoyed at this because he's just like, you're basically, if you do this, you're acting like I did against Stain, and we all know what happened with that. In which they say, hey, we're not going to fight, we're just going to go and try and rescue Bakugo. So when they finally get to the warehouse where All For One is, the students are paralyzed from fear and from seeing All For One, and they see Bakugo trying to fight / get away from the League of Villains, and Kirishima is shown to be the anchor and the plan to rescue Bakugo, because they have Deku using full Cowling, Tenya using his Reciprio burst, and Shoto using his an ice as a ramp, and then Kirishima is like, hey, you're gonna need the one to grab him, because Bakugo is gonna pretty much tell Ida and Deku to piss off. And that's, I believe, is kind of like, in my eyes, I believe that's kind of like the start of his confidence getting built up some more, leading towards the Red Riot moment. Alright, so after Class 1A's fight with Mirio, and he learns of the work studies, he tries to work with Fourth Kind again, the person that he worked with their internships with alongside Tetsu, but he's turned down, and he feels disheartened because that was, as far as he knew, that was his only option. So he gets in contact with Tamaki, and Tamaki takes him to see Fat Gum, and Fat Gum's just like, you know what? Absolutely, I want you, because he saw him in the sports festival just making a star out of himself, and so he gets accepted. Alright, so it took us some time, but here we go. The moment that we've been building up to. Red Riot Unbreakable. It's like I mentioned, when I read this in the manga originally, I was so fucking hyped. I was just... that's what Kirishima is for me. I mentioned this in one of my I believe one of my chapter reviews for My Hero Academia. But whenever Kirishima shows up and whenever Kirishima does something, I'm hyped. I'm like, you're not gonna be able to tell me shit for at least an hour after Kirishima does something badass. That was honestly that moment when Red Riot Unbreakable was unleashed. That is when he became my favorite student in the series. Like I've mentioned before several times, my favorite characters and my hero is All Might is my number one favorite character and my hero. Kirishima is my favorite student. Endeavor is my favorite pro, and then Shigaraki is my favorite villain. But this video and this series isn't about what makes me hyped. This is why I love. And what truly made me love this moment was the anime.
Harder! More! Grow stronger! Body and spirit! Come on! Harden! Become a wall! A wall that's indestructible! Work at its maximum! Red Riot Unbreakable! The bystanders behind me haven't escaped. There are probably people in these buildings too. I'll have to make sure he keeps attacking me. Hardening is my power. Instead of using tricks, I gotta bulldoze my way through and overwhelm him. Ultimate move! Red Gun Turret!
Honestly, everything in the anime enhanced this scene for me. It was the music, the acting, hearing Kirishima's voice sound like it was breaking, like he was just like, it's to me, like I said, and this is my interpretation of the scene. You might have a different one, but for me, I could just you could almost hear the fear in his voice, and he's just like, if I don't do something, these civilians are going to get hurt. They're going to get killed. I am the last line of defense from them being hurt. He was terrified. He wasn't sure. I don't even know. Up until the point, I don't even know if he did, while he was doing the while he was activating Unbreakable, thinks that he doesn't even know if he's going to be able to survive this. As far as he knew, he could only survive for or not survive, but use it for a minute, like 30 to 40 seconds. Now, obviously, that doesn't seem like a lot. That doesn't seem like that bad of a deal. But when you got to think the strain on his body that's happening, and this is probably the first time that he's used it out in the field other than training. As far as he knew, this could have been it for him. This could have killed him. Witnessing the transformation of his skin, just like breaking up, like how it's hardening and just going all over. I loved how his pupils, like his eye, got like that, almost, I would say almost like reptilian like, where it's just like it crosses and then it just glows red in the shadow, and it's just like, and watching that, and then just watching him rush forward as the Blade villain just like tries to do center mass, just like a blade storm, and just sends what looks like hundreds, or maybe not hundreds, but dozens of blades at Kirishima, and Kirishima's just like, no, I can't stop. Just rushing forward, letting the blades hit him dead on, and he's just punching, like rushing through it, breaking the blades, and then when he finally gets close enough, he hits him with the red gun turret. Every time I watch that scene, I get goosebumps. I'm not gonna lie. I tear up because I'm just like, yes, my boy, he did it. He, like, in his mind, he feels like he's made it. He feels like everything that held him back, he overcame it. Like that moment with Gigantomachia Mina, he feels like he finally overcame that fear and was able to go on and do something. It makes me feel amazing after watching it, like I could do something like that. And as you can tell by the clip from however much of it I used the dub, which this is what I watch exclusively for almost all of my anime. The voice actor Justin Cook, amazing job. For those of you who don't know, he was also the voice of Yusuke Urameshi from the Yu Yu Hakusho dub. He does such an amazing job just selling that desperation and fear that Kirishima has in this situation. And just watching this, Kirishima lives up to the series motto of going plus ultra. Again, like I'm reiterating my point from before, he realizes that if he fails here, civilians are going to die, and he refuses to let that happen. And continuing on with the Red Riot Unbreakable moment, this, again, like I said, the actual Unbreakable scene is what made me fall in love with Kirishima. But I just can't not mention this part afterwards, where he and Fat Gum are on the raid they're part of the raid for Overhaul's lair, and they team up, and just watching that fight between Fat Gum, Red Riot against Rappa and Tin Guy. Just when Red Riot Unbreakable breaks and Kirishima's just like, that was my strongest move. What can I do? I can't do anything. And even one of the villains mentioned this because he was like, you've already lost. I see the fear. I just see the fear in your eyes, and I can tell that you've already given up, and you know it is. And then just watching that moment where he just like reappears right in front of Fat Gum and just, I have no other way of saying this, but goes as hard as he can, literally gets as hard as he can, and just allows time for Fat Gum to take all the energy from the blows that he built up, and Kirishima becomes the perfect shield while Fat Gum becomes the perfect spear, and they just take out those two foes. just watching that happen was just added on to the experience to me. Like, it just made things so much more, seeing him come to terms, like, okay, sometimes no matter what, I'm still not strong enough. I'm gonna get stronger. I'm not gonna let this happen again. And he doesn't. He gets scared for a minute and he thinks that they're gonna lose, but he doesn't. He does not let that stop him from at least trying. And one more thing, this is gonna have slight spoilers for later on in the manga. I'm gonna have something going on right here. I don't know. I'll figure something out. Maybe a timestamp down below. I'll try to have something on the screen, so that was if you just want to jump ahead, we'll go from there. But, and I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It comes back around with Gigantomachia charging past the students. Momo is creating like her little sleep drug canisters and everything. Mina goes forward with like her acid man, trying to get close enough to where she can throw her canister into Gigantomachia's mouth. The last minute, Mina gets scared because she realizes, oh, this is the guy from back in middle school. And so as it slips out of her finger, Kirishima just pops out of nowhere. He's Unbreakable is activated. He grabs her canister and tosses it in, and then just goes to town. And just watching that, just like, again, Kirishima is a hype beast for me. Anytime he shows up, anytime he does something, like, I'm just like rip my shirt. I'm just like, ah. I'm like, yes. I'm like, you my boy, yes. And I'm just seeing that, how it comes full circle to where he faces the person that made him doubt his dreams and is able to act and not be scared and act forward and do what he needs to be done. I just love that. I'm just like, yes. Alright, and so that's gonna be it for the first episode of Why I Love. Like I said, this is gonna be the first of many videos in this series, and it's gonna be like, special project for me. So it's not gonna be like, whenever I feel, I guess, inspired, if I want to be, artsy about it, whenever I feel inspired to make this scene, because I already have a few ideas of what it is that I'm going to talk about in the Why I Love series. So whenever I'm inspired to talk about it, you'll expect those videos to come out. But again, like I said, this series is just going to be special to me, so I want to be able to take my time, make sure that I do the moment, the character, the series, the whatever, justice. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to do the normal YouTube stuff, like, comment, share with your friends, all that good stuff. But as always, I want y'all to have a great day, and I'll see y'all later.